and welcome. My name is Jill Crosby, and I am the owner and founder of the Conscious Dating Network, which is comprised of multiple sites, including Spiritual Singles, Green Singles, Conscious Singles, and many others. And just to clarify a little bit, members only need to join one site to immediately have access to all sites and all members. It's the way I set it up. It's a marketing thing, and it works really well to just fill all the dating, all the sites with lots of great members. And so you just need to join one to have access to all. And today I have a really special treat. I am interviewing Gavin Frye, and Gavin is one of our success stories, half of a success story. Joy is his fiance now. And we are going to focus on a man's perspective of online dating and what are the keys that really makes it work. So hi, Gavin, welcome.
Pleasure to be here with you. It'll be fascinating to see what comes between us and out of my mouth.
I like it. Yeah, well, we don't really plan these things too much, which I like. That's the way I like to do interviews too. So it's very spontaneous. I have a few questions I've come up with that I think will be interesting, but you never know where we end up, right?
Yeah, yep.
All right. So what do you like? You have found success on Spiritual Singles and you're now engaged. And so I had the great idea of saying, well, what I'd like to interview, because I talk to a lot of women and I hear men's perspectives, but it's so important to find out exactly what are the keys to really, really make it work. So what do you think are some of the principles that will help a man draw in a loving, wonderful relationship, the kind of relationship that most people would be so happy and just thrilled to have? What are some of the most important keys for you?
Well, I have to start off with a disclaimer that I can share what worked for me, and hopefully other men and maybe even women listening wanting to understand men, they'll learn how a man like me might approach this. 5 years ago, I started looking for my partner, and 4 years I spent dating a number of women, some very closely, but they weren't a long-term match. And a year ago is when I met Joy, and now I'm engaged and we're getting married in a few months. But I learned a lot in the process. Initially, I was totally intimidated, and I had a good friend who coached me, and he said, the most important thing is to be completely authentic. Your profile should be accurate and honest. It should be vulnerable, because we're all vulnerable in this. Everyone is vulnerable dating. And your pictures should be recent, and they should include a picture of your whole body and a picture of your eyes and your face, so they capture your spirit. And he said, so that's one. Two is let's have to respond. I'm sorry.
Wait. Let's go back, because I think the photos are important, and a lot of guys I notice I think they're shy to take selfies and post photos of themselves. Women seem a little more comfortable with that, but men are not. So was there something that you did to be okay with it, or were you shy or nervous about it, or what's your take on that?
Well, I'm a licensed spiritual therapist for the last 40 years, and I've been in the public eye. I've had photo shoots. That area is more comfortable for me. I had some nice photos, but I wanted to make sure they were recent, not dated. So for me, I just had somebody take some really quality pictures, and I picked the ones that I felt showed my heart and showed my strength and my uniqueness. And I think I had 4 or 5 pictures up. One of them was where I was conducting a wedding, because it just seemed to capture me in doing what I love to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and if a man doesn't have access to a professional photographer, isn't used to that, what kind of tips or advice would you give them to relax a little bit and be able to take some selfies? I always recommend take at least 20 selfies, and at least for the headshot, and then have someone else take the full body shot if you can. If not, you can finagle it and do it. What would you recommend to help a man relax and be more comfortable about taking selfies?
Well, you've shared a great context there with specific, recommendations. The thing I'm astonished about this is the man has to appreciate that a photograph carries a lot. It speaks a lot. It's who you are. We're all very unique. Men will spend a year researching a car. They'll go drive 40 of them, but they won't spend time writing a picture that could be a part of a process that could land them a partner, which could be one of the most extraordinary parts of their lives. It just doesn't make sense. Take care. Learn how to take photos. Have somebody help you. Receive support. But you don't want to be a throwaway or a casual move. Same with the profile. I took a lot of time with my profile so that it reflected who I was and my values and what I wanted. And I was purposeful. I was coached to do this. Speak to the woman that you want to draw in. I wasn't speaking to everybody who might read it. I wanted to speak to the one that would receive me. I'm a man that likes openness and transparency and vulnerability. I have a balance of masculine and feminine, but the feminine part of me, the softer side of me, the human, the vulnerable, I included that in the profile because that's part of me. And I want to make sure if someone doesn't want that, I'd rather they read it and go, nope, not my guy, than me misrepresenting myself. So in a way, I think you have to risk being bold and being honest, not only in the profile, but as you go through the dating process.
I totally agree. That's really, really great advice.
Mhm.
So for the pictures, I think you made, and that profile, I think you made a really good point that it's who you're going to spend the rest of your life with potentially.
Yeah,
That's kind of important to put a little time and energy into creating a profile that's going to attract that one. I always like to tell people when you're taking photos of yourself, when you look into that camera, think about the person, your ideal, perfect, beautiful partner. Think about her, think about him, them, whoever it is, and imagine they're seeing your photo as you're taking it. So it's like a clarion call
there you
to
go.
that one person. And
Yeah.
same with, I like that, same with writing your profile, where you write it. So it's screening people in or out just by how you're writing it. And if you're vulnerable and you share something that might turn off a woman, that's good. That's okay. Because if it turns them off, well, they're not for you.
That's
And
right.
if it turns them on, then great. Like Joy read your profile and she said she really appreciated the depth and what you shared, that you went into some good detail. And because I see some profiles that the men just, and women sometimes too, they'll just gloss over like this one short little paragraph that tells you nothing. And on my websites, you can write as much as you want, which I don't recommend writing a novel either. There is a
Right.
fine line, right?
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
but keeping it each, a paragraph or two per question and going into some depth. So how can men get in touch with what they want and being a little more vulnerable, like, and not just showing, oh, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, this is what I like to do, these are all my spiritual practices, rather than coming from like a bragging, grandiose type of energy, but more of like a humble, authentic, real, how do they get in touch with that and really tap into that?
Well, I actually want to acknowledge, I think it's not easy to see ourselves. It's not easy to see ourselves accurately. It's not easy to write about ourselves. It's challenging. We can see other people much more easily than we could see ourselves. So it's a process. So investing in that process, maybe it takes 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe you write a draft, then you return to it. Maybe you show it to someone else and they say, does this represent me? You put care and intention in the photographs and the profile because it's your intention for creating a partner. And women can feel that when they look at a profile. How much care has been placed here? How much sincerity has been placed here? It shows. At least the woman that I wanted was someone who was awake spiritually. They were psychologically more mature. They knew that the process of being in a relationship is vulnerable no matter how evolved you can be. That's a part of the game. I wrote that in my profile. I recognize relationships trigger unconscious issues. That's one of the things they do. So I wrote that and said, I want a woman who knows that, because there's no way to avoid that in my experience. So the human needs to be included along with the parading of all the divine. And with your side being with spiritual singles, it's easy to move into what might be called spiritual bypass, where you just present a rosy picture, but you can't sustain a rosy picture when you start dating. The dating process is even more vulnerable often. But investing in the actual profile that you feel represents you and your uniqueness, even in your growth journey, is in your interest, is really essential to invest time and care in.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's tricky, you're right, because it's easy for us to see other people and see what they need to work on and their faults, and yet it is more difficult to see that in ourselves unless we really, I don't know, there are people that can do it for sure, and yet it is more challenging, I would agree. So, but do you have any tricks to help men in particular go a little deeper with, like, any exercises, or how can they present like a real authentic self in the profile?
Sure. I think
And when they're dating too, like, there's a thing called peacocking, right? When us women will date a man, and this can go along with any gender. It could be females to women dating. One usually will have more of a masculine energy and might be, I own this and this house and this car, and I've done these practices and I've worked with this guru, and they just want to go on and on about how great they are. And I mean, I'm like, yawn, and like, are you going to ask anything about me? So there's a play that needs to happen, and men need to learn how to listen better, I think, oftentimes. So that's kind of throwing a lot at you at once, but go for it.
Well, I think what makes a good profile and what makes someone who's ready for a real mature long-term relationship is self-awareness. It's self-knowledge. So the more in one's lifetime you can do therapy, you can do workshops, you are in relationships, you get experience, you make mistakes. I've been in 2 marriages before I've been with Joy, made a lot of mistakes, which has been part of what allowed me to create what I have now with Joy. So as an exercise, because you're asking what can men do, one exercise I have in my workshops that are transformational is I have what's called a sacred river. So I have people identify the most powerful experiences in their life and why, both the joyful and the painful. And when you start to really look at your life through those eyes, like, what shaped me? What makes me unique? Could be children, could be a certain job, could be an accident, could be a divorce, could be whatever.
A passion,
You start to look at your life, because no one has a life like you. So you're really in a profile, and in dating, you're representing you. The more aware you are of you, and the more curious you are of you, the more curious you're going to be of your partner. Because that's what intimacy is about, is not showcasing, it's revealing, taking risks, sharing, celebrating. So the more you can do that with yourself, the more it's going to get reflected in your profile.
Beautiful. Yeah, I like that. And it could be, something unique about them is their passion and their love and what motivates them, what drives them. And these are actually some of the questions in the essay portion of my site, which I designed to help people go deeper and to have a good look within, and really get clear on what is important to them. And you had mentioned in a conversation we had offline about that you really appreciated with the site that people can actually create their own questions too.
They can. Your site is so different than any other site, because the level of sincerity and the level of revealing that you can do in an individualized way, there's so much valuable information, compatibility. You've done everything you can in the design to help people engage in the dating process in a real way, in a revealing way. But it is, I will tell you, in the 4 years of dating, one thing I learned from a woman's perspective, they encounter so many men who have been superficial, or they just say they're interested and then they don't call back, or they just write briefly on the profile, or they get together for a date and they're not who they said they were, and their photos were old. So women have a fair measure of distrust or radar out for whether something is the genuine article or not. So in a
Yeah.
way, we men, because of the collection of men's behavior, we're on trial a little bit. And I think men need to appreciate that trust and safety needs to be built steadily. It's not just expected right out of the chute, not in this arena.
Right, right. I agree. Let's get into that a little deeper. Men need to be honest and upfront with current pictures, real profile. Everything needs to be current and real. And I think to me, it's so obvious. If we don't put up a current real picture, and then we go to meet somebody in person or have a Zoom date as to begin with, and we don't look like our picture, it's lying right off the bat. It's misrepresentation. And imagine two people coming to a date. What if neither of them look like their picture? It would just be like, what the hell is going on?
No, but you're right. I mean, it's from the get-go, it's sabotage. It just undermines the entire process right from the beginning. And I do want to say, putting ourselves out there as men in a very real way, and dating is scary, it's vulnerable. I don't like being rejected. I dated women who I was really drawn to, but they weren't drawn to me. That wasn't easy to handle. I had to learn how to get over that, being hurt or wish that it was different. And then I had to learn how to let women know if I wasn't drawn to them as a match. That was not easy to handle, but I tried to do it as upfront and caring as I could. I mean, this is a tender area, but you know, it's, if you want to have a life partner, I mean, I had a prayer. Some part of me just knows my life would be fundamentally different with the right partner, that I would thrive and be a better man. And I've been with Joy for a year now, and she's my woman, and I'm growing, and I feel like the best man I've ever been, and I'm just so grateful. And yes, we're spectacular in many ways, but we're also vulnerable. We're both on a healing journey. We have a safe place to talk about that. We trigger each other. We grow. We like that kind of a relationship. It's, you know, I've done marriage counseling for 40 years. People who don't deal with reality in marriage or in a relationship, it ends up disintegrating.
Of course. You have to, that communication and healing and personal growth together is so important. And it can be fun, you know, right? Oh, I didn't realize, it just triggered me. I didn't realize that I still had that issue. God dang it. Okay, let me get through this shit.
Just like God.
It can be that fun. Like, it doesn't have to be this big, serious crap, deal. It can be fun. But there's something I wanted to go back to that you said too, about getting rejected, because I think that's something that nobody likes to get rejected. And I think one of the big lessons we have as humanity, as humans, is to not take it personally.
Right.
Because if I get rejected from somebody, you get rejected from somebody, they're not your match.
That's right.
All we have to say is next. Let's move on. Let's not, we don't have to go into some big trauma ordeal. Just let it go. We're not for them. That's okay. We're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, you mentioned that, and I see this too, sometimes women will get frustrated because it takes courage for women to reach out and contact a man. And then if the man doesn't reply, it can be number one, women, if you're listening to this too, don't take it personally. Just say next, he's not your guy. If he doesn't have the the kindness or the respect to reply, well, but fuck it, move on. That's how I feel. And, but men, please, and women, please reply. Like, even if it's just like, Gavin, you have a great thing that you would say when, a response that you would give women when you didn't feel a connection and they reached out to you first. Tell us what you would say.
Yeah, if a woman read my profile, was moved by it, and sent me an overture, not just a wink or I'm interested in you, but an overture telling me how my profile had impacted them and that they're drawn to me. I can't imagine not responding to someone like that. So, but when I would read their profile and I realized for whatever reason inside of me, it just didn't seem like a match. I would write them and say, thank you for your kind words. Appreciate you taking in my profile. I'm touched by that. I've looked over yours. You're a very rich person with a wonderful life. And I owe you my candor. I must let you know, I don't sense that we're a match on a romantic level. And that's mostly from my intuition. And I don't even know the reason why, but I've learned enough at this point in my life to trust it. But I wanted to let you know personally, and I wish you best in finding the partner of your dreams.
Beautiful. And you can even write that in a Word document and copy and paste it.
Exactly.
Response. That's so every time, if you're getting this a lot, and that way it's from your heart, you've written it from your heart once. Right. And then if you need to customize it for each person, you could, but at least they're getting something back that's heartfelt and honest. Like, no, it's not a match. I appreciate it. Because just realizing that it takes some courage to reach out, and not everybody has that courage. And some people are waiting for the other person to contact them first. So that's another thing about, would you coach men to be okay when a woman contacts them first?
Well, I can only speak from personal experience. The whole stereotype of the men needs to take the initiative. I love being with a woman, Joy, who is just as comfortable with taking the initiative and receiving it and following her own heart's call without having there be any prescribed rules about how. I happened to reach out to her first, and then she wrote back. But to me, I had a spectacular partner write to me initiating. What would be the problem in that?
Right? I know. Right. It's so funny. Yeah. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
Who cares how it starts? And I get to, when people tell me they're a success, they met somebody, I usually will ask who contacted whom first, because I'm interested. And I'd say it's about 50-50 in heterosexual relationships that, men contact versus women. So it's pretty evenly balanced. And that just tells me it doesn't really matter. And as long as men, because there's, this masculine feminine dance is so interesting. And a lot of our spiritual members are very evolved in their feminine side, which is great, right? That's great. And yet, as a woman, we also want the masculine side too. We want the man to be the leader sometimes, and to take charge, and to not necessarily pull our chair out, but even opening a door or planning some things, maybe initiating sexually, things like that. Women, as women, we want that sometimes. So what's a good way for a man to bring out more of that masculine energy?
Well, he needs to have it in activated inside himself in the other areas of his life. In other words, this doesn't just play itself out in dating, it plays itself out in real life, where someone might be overbalanced toward just the feminine or majority feminine. I think the most fulfilling life comes from developing our masculine and feminine energies as men and women, where we're able to have access to them and we're resilient enough to shift to them in what we need. And with Joy, I have a partner. She's got a very strong feminine, beautiful feminine, and a strong masculine. but neither of us wants to control the other one. And if she were masculine and not feminine, I wouldn't be with her. And I think the same for me. And we just keep growing in those energies. The relationship helps us do that. When she receives, I move into the man, she receives, I move more into the man. It's kind of magical. I like it.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to be interviewing her too, and that's kind of fun because we're going to go into it from the receiving side as well.
Right.
So what women can do to draw that out more from a man. So that'll be fun. So
Yeah, you mentioned briefly about opening the door or pulling a chair. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, Jill. I do those things. My dad was from the Midwest, and he was a very gracious man, and not all women like that. I've been with women who say, "What are you doing?" I can open the door, and I go, "I know you can open the door. I'm attempting to honor you energetically." Oh, yeah. Joy understands that. She loves that.
Yeah. I think a lot of us women still love that and appreciate it for sure. It's great. I think it's great. And it depends on the woman. We're all different, right?
Yep.
So we have a couple things coming up. We've got and well, before I get into what's coming up retreat wise, do you have any more tips for men as far as just in general, like for creating success with online dating? Like any ultimate tips here as we wrap this up?
I think playfulness is underrated.
Ah,
Playfulness is the lubricant. Playfulness, courtship. And I love what you said, that if you go along dating someone and you realize that you're not a match for each other, doesn't even matter who makes that decision. You wouldn't want to stay with someone unless they dearly wanted to stay with you and be committed. So if it doesn't go the distance, I had 2-3 month relationships that were deep and powerful, but it wasn't a match. And I'm glad we found out before we got married and had kids. So it really, and like you said, I remember Dale Carnegie years ago with sales. He said a good salesperson will not be rejected. They just go, I'm one step closer to the sale. And that's how it was for me. It was like, I got actually more selective as I went along. I would wait for a strong intuition before I would write to a woman. So I think sometimes I would write to someone had a hesitation about because I was desperate or I was lonely. My encouragement, wait until something strong inside your heart compels you to write. And again, it's not easy because I've written overtures to women like that. No response. Oh, man, how could they not respond to me? But still, I got my answer. So I moved on.
Yeah, exactly. In sales, it's always like, how many no's to a yes, and it's a good attitude to have for online dating for sure. What about?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've got another one too.
Okay, one last thing, and that is, you said, well, what's one of the strongest things you'd recommend? I would say risk. Take risks.
Yeah.
You take risks, it's going to be in a live relationship. You may even risk the relationship when you take a risk, but not if it's the right woman. Not if it's the right woman. So the women that I'm drawn to, and more that I encounter in clients in our singles workshops, they love vulnerability. They love when a man can be human. They love when a man can cry. They just love when a man will be willing to share their depth inside rather than present, some careful image.
Yeah, and I think when men realize that, then they'll feel safer and more able to express themselves that way. And it might take a few dates. Like, I don't see that happening necessarily, depending on the relation, the chemistry between the people and the connection, because sometimes it's such an instant connection. Like if it's a soulmate person that you're meeting that you've been around many lifetimes with, it can be pretty quick, like sharing some pretty deep stuff right away, which is cool when that happens. And other times it can take a little longer for both people to feel comfortable and feel safe and feel okay sharing some vulnerabilities. So I think it's a matter of just tapping in with yourself and being willing to do that when you meet the person that you know you want to go deeper with.
Yeah, if your heart says the thing you've been holding back, share it now, I say risk.
Risk. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even risk, maybe I've seen people that they'll tell me like, well, they won't reach out to someone and send a message to somebody because she or he's out of their league. And I think that's can be a waste because maybe they're not. Like, who says league? What the frick is this league thing? Who cares? Like, I mean, if they're totally a different age range, if you're, a 70-year-old man and you want to email a 20-year-old woman, that's probably not going to work. That's not that's not a good idea, generally speaking. But if you're in the a roundabout age range is okay, and you feel that strong connection, and why not send them a message? What do you have to lose?
Yeah.
And yeah. And if it's not a match, she'll either not respond, or if she's nice, she'll send you a little response and say, sorry, but not a match. And maybe it's a match. Like, it could actually be the one you end up with. If you don't risk, you don't know.
No, and after 4 years, I can confess when I wrote to Joy, because I loved her profile. I was moved by her. I wrote her sincerely, somewhat at length. And I also went, this may or may not go anywhere. I do not know. But I took my chips and just put them out in the center of the table. And as I think I shared with you, Jill, she lived 10-hour drive away from me. So because I didn't find someone that lived close, I finally realized my soulmate or partner might live around the world. I don't know. So I just opened up my arena of candidates. I dated a woman once from Austria. I said, maybe I'm going to move to Europe. I don't know. So it's like, you don't know. This dating thing is a mystery. And there's no rhyme or reason. Like Joy she was dating for 1 month before she met me. 1 month. Can you imagine?
She wasn't dating. She was on the site.
Online. She was online dating for 1 month.
Right. Wow. I know.
Wow.
I know. Yeah.
So,
well, and she'd done a lot of personal growth work around that, and was really ready. And she didn't get online really until she knew she was ready. And she manifested you fast. So go Joy. I love it. Yeah. So we've got a couple things coming up. We've got a Conscious Singles retreat in Mount Shasta, where we have a few spots left for men. The men are always the slowest to sign up. You guys, you men, you got to register for these, because the women go. The women are at these retreats, and you can meet them live, and you can learn all these skills from Joy and Gavin, who are just master facilitators, wonderful. And you'll learn how to open your heart, be more vulnerable, and step into the masculine. It's like a nice balance, and they'll help you with your profile and your essays and everything. So, and you get to experience Mount Shasta, which is beautiful. So you've got that one coming up. And then we've got Joy, Gavin, and I, this is news. We're going to be doing an online series of 4 classes that it's all online. So you can just sit in the comfort of your home and watch our class and participate. It will be participatory to a certain extent. So we're really looking forward to that. Do you want to say anything about either of those, Gavin?
Yeah, well, the singles retreat, I happened to, after I met Joy last year, a year ago, she had already been preparing this this singles retreat with you and your group. She invited me to join her. We facilitated together 2 months after we met. We loved facilitating together. That's one of our compatibilities. The retreat is for sincere people who have a powerful prayer in their heart, a desire to be with a partner, and coming to the retreat can contribute a lot of ways towards the success of that desire manifesting in your life. And you can read about it on our website. We'll put a link. And the other 4-part series is about conscious online dating and keys for success for creating a long-term healthy partner.
Yeah, and they're both going to be really fantastic. So we hope that you guys, well, we just need 3 more men on the for the Conscious Singles Retreat in Mount Shasta. We do this every year. And then we'll open up, we'll tell you about the online class coming up as well. I'll be sending an email out to all of my members. So if you're not a member yet on Spiritual Singles or Green Singles or Conscious Singles, pick one, doesn't really matter which one. Like I said, they all end up at the same place. Pick one, sign up, and you'll get my emails with all the updates of future retreats and online classes. And also, if you wouldn't mind, if you like this particular video, like it and subscribe, and then you'll also get notices about future upcoming videos. I'm going to be interviewing more success stories. I've got another interview lined up that I'm going to be doing Monday with oh gosh, Kim and Randy. So they've been together quite a while now, and they're married and super happy, and I can't wait to interview them as well. So, and Gavin, thank you very much today. I think this was very enlightening and inspiring for men. And I think it's cool for women to see from a men's perspective too. Got a little behind the scenes peek of what are men thinking and what can help men and women and everyone. I mean, it's just, there's so much with this. You're right. It is kind of a mystery, and it's fun to delve into it and learn as much as we can and do what we can to help people meet each other.
Yeah, and I want to say 2 things. That Conscious Online Dating Series, it's 4 evenings through the month of August. The beautiful thing about that is you can do it from anywhere around the world, and we plan to have a lot of people who will be coming. And secondly, Jill, I just can't thank you enough. There is no way Joy and I would be together right now if it weren't for you. Your heart and your investment in that site with sincerity of intent assisted us in transforming our lives, and now we're sharing it with others. So thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure, and that's why I do this. It's just, yeah, it warms my heart to see success like you guys and so many others. It's just, yeah, makes my life. Thank you.
Beautiful. All right, thanks.
All right, well, we're gonna wrap up this interview, and we have lots more coming, so stay tuned, and thanks for joining us today.